Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today I'm talking about my spring TBR, but before I dive into that, I want to review my winter TBR and what books from my winter TBR I did or did not read. So the 6 books that were on my winter TBR were The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield, Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, The Raven and the Reindeer by T. Kingfisher, The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch, Beast of the Frozen Sun by Jill Criswell, and A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabos. So from those 6, I read 2, I DNF'd 2, and then I didn't get to 2 of them. So my success rate with my winter TBR was not great, but I'm gonna just go through and tell you which ones I read and what I rated them, and then which ones I DNF'd. So the ones that I read were Spinning Silver, which I gave 4 stars, and I have a review for this that I will link below. And I also read The Raven and the Reindeer by T. Kingfisher, which I gave 3 stars, and I will link the wrap-up in which I talked about this. The 2 books that I DNF'd were Beasts of the Frozen Sun by Jill Criswell and A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabos, and I'll be talking about these in my spring DNF, which I'm not sure if this video is going up first or if that one is. So if it's already up, I'll link it below. If not, it'll be coming up very soon. And so the 2 books that I didn't read from this list in winter was The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield and The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch, which is surprising to me because I feel like these are the 2 that I was the most like, oh, I'm definitely going to read these, and then the other ones are like maybe, except for Spinning Silver. I was very determined to read Spinning Silver in December. Other than that, these were the 2 that I was like most certain I was going to read, and then I just didn't. So these are still high on my list of books to read, but now I want to set a new TBR for the spring. So these are going to be the 6 books that I want to read over March, April, and May. So the first book on this list, which is my top priority for this spring, is The Golden Fool by Robin Hobb. So this is the 2nd book in the Tawny Man trilogy, which is in her Realm of the Elderling series, and it's one where we're back with Fitz and the Fool, and we're catching up with them all these years after the events of the first trilogy in this larger series. And I read the first book, which is Fool's Errand, in 2019, and I had intended to finish this series in 2019, but I put it off too long and just didn't get to it by the end of the year. So this year, I'm not gonna make the same mistake. I'm gonna start the series early. Because also, the way I like to read her books, I like to have a couple of months in between reading each book. I don't like reading them back to back. So that also creates a problem when I put these off too long and start them too late in the year. So this year, I'm going to read The Golden Fool in the spring so that I can read the final book, which is Fool's Fate, in the summer. So I'm getting a head start on this. This is top priority. I'm planning to get to this in March specifically, but definitely this spring, this is the one that I have to read this season. The next 2 books that I have are also ones that I really need to get to soon because they're both books about books. In a lot of my videos, I've talked about wanting to read more books about books, and I've been collecting lots of them, but I haven't been reading them as quickly as I want to. And like, I have read a few of the books about books that I've been collecting, but just not quickly enough because I've been collecting them much more quickly than I've been reading them. And also, like, I want to read them because I enjoy books about books, but I also want to read enough of them that I can make a recommendation video for you guys about really great books about books. So I have a lot of them, and hopefully I will read more than just these 2, but the 2 that I have right now that are top priority are The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. I've heard mixed reviews about this one, but one of the things that I've heard people complain about with this is that they feel like it's too slow and that the writing is too flowery. But I like slow books, I love flowery writing, so maybe I'll like that. I've heard other criticisms of it as well, so I'm not really sure how I'm going to feel about this one, but I want to at least give it a try. But this one I don't really know that much about what it's actually about. I know it's one that involves books. I think it's one that uses books as like portals to other worlds. I think there's a love story in it. That's about all I know. And of course, the other book about books that I have to get to this spring is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I got this book when it first came out in November, and I actually read like the first 60 pages of it, but then my pre-order of Call Down the Hawk came in, and I just put this down and immediately read that, and then I just haven't picked this back up again. But I've really been meaning to read this. I've heard really great things about it. As I said, I read the first 60 pages of it and I wasn't super into it yet, but I also feel like this is one of those books that takes a little while to get going because I think there are a lot of story threads that end up weaving together. And so I wasn't at a point in the story where I really understood what was going on, but I have a lot of patience for stories. I'm willing to like keep going and push through because I feel like I could really love this. I just have to keep going because I don't think that it's one that necessarily like grabs you in the first like 50 pages. So this is another one that I have to get to. Next up, I have Wildwood by Charles DeLint, and this is a contemporary fantasy, I think, about an artist who lives in the woods and then maybe finds a portal to the fairy realm. I'm not exactly sure. But I have really been wanting to try a Charles DeLint book. From looking at his back catalog of books, he has a lot of books that seem like they are nature fantasy, and I am always interested in nature fantasy, so if I like his books, I'll have a whole new author with lots of books about nature fantasy. After getting this book though, I realized that this may not have been the best place to start because it seems like this is more of a contemporary fantasy and a lot of his other stuff is more high fantasy, but this is the one that I have now. It's also very short, which will mean hopefully it'll be quick to get through. I think it's like under 200, oh, it's just like 200 pages. But as long as I don't like absolutely hate this, I probably will try one of his high fantasy books also. So excited to get to this one. Next on my TBR, I have Lady of the Forest by Jennifer Robertson, which is one of those chunky 600-page books. This is a Robin Hood retelling, so I am expecting some good nature vibes from this because Sherwood Forest, like, it's gotta have good nature vibes. So I have really been excited about this one since I hauled it in like, I think I got it in December or something. So I really want to get to this one soon because I have really been in the mood for some nature vibes. I mean, I'm always in the mood for that, but like especially recently. And the last book on my list is The Game of Kings by Dorothy Dunnett. This, I'm not sure if it's just historical fiction or if it's historical fantasy. I don't actually know if there's magic in it, but this is set in 1500s Scotland and our main character has been accused of treason and been exiled, but he is trying to come back to clear his name and I think like save his family. And I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, but the few things I have heard about this series sound like it's going to be great. This is another one that I'm excited to read because if I like this book, this whole series is out. It was published in like the 60s. So if I like this series, I have a bunch of books that I can just dive into. I think it's like maybe a 6-book series, or is it 9 books? I don't know. It has a bunch of books in it. So if I like this, I can just dive into the rest of this series, which is also part of why I want to get this one started early in the year so that if I like it, I can read the rest of the series throughout the year. So those are the 6 books that are my top priority to read this spring. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!